is Nannini, Schneider and Lund. The rest of the 36th round on the rolling lap up to the rolling start. Very pretty degree. And this is going to be a long and hard and hot race. We're riding with Pierre-Henri Raphael in his McLaren. The race is on. We go down the start finish straight, and those three Mercedes are out in front. It's Schneider. Schneider has got the lead. It's Schneider from Nannini with Ludwig in third place. The rest of the field pouring through, but JJ Leto has got the McLaren up into fourth place. Then it's three of the Porsches and the Gulf McLaren of Pierre-Henri Raphael, the one with the cockpit camera we were riding with a second ago, is in eighth place. There are those two yellow Lotuses well up behind the black Dams Panos, but already Bernd Schneider has pulled away from his two teammates. Bernd Schneider already building a lead on this first lap from Nannini and Ludwig. There is Leto in fourth place, and we ride with Pierre-Henri Raphael as Dalmas and Collard battle in their Porsches ahead of us. And let's ride now with Raphael in the 600 horsepower McLaren through that long left-hander. And you can see how quick the gear changes are with this sequential gear change. He just pushes the gear lever forward or back to go up and down, there, forward to go up a gear. And he's looking at his mirror, and I can tell you the reason why he's looking in his mirror is because the white BMW entered McLaren of Roberto Ravaglia is right behind him as they go through that tight right-hander onto the start-finish straight. He's looking at his mirror, and Ravaglia is up alongside. They're side by side as they go down the start-finish straight. Flat out is Raphael, flat out is Ravaglia on the brakes now. And is Ravaglia going through? He is! Ravaglia sneaks through on the inside and accelerates away up the hill. This may be a long 4-hour race, but the battles are going on all the way down the field. Schneider, Nannini and Ludwig in their Mercedes, the first three. Leto's McLaren fourth. Then the three Porsches, Wallach, Collard in the red car, Dalmas, then the two McLarens that we've been watching battle with Ravaglia ahead now of Raphael, and Schneider building this lead. Schneider very much the leader of this three-car Mercedes team. He's the best placed Mercedes driver in the championship, and he is very much the blue-eyed boy in that team. And look at this lead he's building, while Nannini and Ludwig play the defensive strategy behind him to try and keep the McLarens and the Porsches behind. It's the yellow mirrored car of Schneider that leads, and you can always tell these Mercedes by the colour of their mirrors. That's how the pits identify them. There's the blue mirrored car in second place of Nannini, the red mirrored car of Ludwig in third place, and JJ Leto, as he has been consistently throughout this GT season, the quickest of all the McLarens. And Porsche, Panos and Lotus getting very, very close indeed. The Lotus is almost spinning. That's Baldrini's Lotus almost tripping over the Panos of Andy Wallace. And we got a very early pit stop for Yannick Dalmas. This is the 7th place Porsche, which has come in after only a handful of laps. Now, what are they doing to that car? They're doing something in the cockpit. Is it the seat belts? It's the seat itself, apparently. It seems that the seat has come loose in that car, and that's no joke at all when you're driving around here at speeds of up to 185 miles an hour. Meanwhile, the leader goes smoothly and domineeringly on his way. That is the GT2 leader, the white and blue striped Viper of Olivier Beretta, and just behind it, if you see a yellow flash, that will be the Marcos of the Dutchman Cor Oyzer, second at the moment in the GT2 class. And a phalanx of the little GT2 Porsches with the leading Mercedes lapping them, working its way through the traffic. Schneider, of course, still at the wheel. That's Norbert Haug in the sunglasses, the competition's boss of Mercedes, watching his team run at the front of this race here at the A1 ring in Austria. That's Gary Ailes's Parabolica McLaren. It's stationary, there's wreckage, and Mike Hesselman's running away from the Lotus, which is on fire. That Lotus is burning badly, and Gary Ailes still inside the McLaren. Now the door's opening. Gary Ailes scrambling out of the McLaren, but the Lotus well and truly ablaze. No fire marshals yet. Where are the fire marshals? We've got yellow flags, but that Lotus burning badly. Now there's a fire truck there, but that Lotus very much on fire. I wonder if this is going to call for a safety car. That's Chris Goodwin talking to David Morrison, the patron of the Parabolica team, and poor Chris Goodwin distraught to see that the Parabolica car, which has been doing so well this season, is obviously out. There's Gary Ailes with the blonde hair talking to the burly figure of Mike Hesselmans, the Dutchman who was driving the Lotus. They're both quite clearly unhurt. We see it again. The McLaren spins, I think possibly because it was touched by John Nielsen's McLaren, which it was battling with. And as it spins, Hesselmans' Lotus caught it. Hesselmans running away from the car, realizing that it is stranded and well on fire. Well, they've got the fire out now, but the car is still on the track, as indeed is the Parabolica McLaren, and it has brought out the safety car. So Bernd Schneider at the head of the queue that is building up behind the safety car, but it means that that lead has melted away.
Gary, what happened?
Well, going into this first corner here, I mean, John must have missed a gear or something coming out of this one, and I was on the outside. He came down the inside. I actually gave him room. I didn't turn into him, and he gave me a smack on the way through. He couldn't help it because he committed to the corner, I guess, but he gave me a whack, put me on the curb and spun me. And then the Lotus hit the front of the car.
The safety car has parked once more. The race is on again, and still Mercedes 1, 2, 3. But as we've gone through the pit stops, it's Klaus Ludwig who is now the second Mercedes, still Bernd Schneider leading, Ludwig in second place, Alessandro Nannini is third. Behind the trio of Silver Arrows, JJ Leto in the McLaren, you saw him there. He's in fourth place. Then the Porsche of Bob Wallach is fifth. Roberto Ravaglia's McLaren is sixth. And in GT2, it's a Porsche leading. The Italian Stefan Ortelli leads the Vipers, but there's still a very long way to go here in Austria at the A1 ring. Austria at the A1 ring. Into the pits comes the Bruno Eichmann GT2 Porsche. It's got damage to the front right, a puncture at the very least, and that's going to drop it out of third place in that class. Good news for Justin Bell and Dieter Questa, who will move up to third in the GT2 class. Meanwhile, a great three-car battle for sixth place. All three of them are McLarens. Peter Cox, who's taken his car over from Roberto Ravaglia, Pierre-Henri Raffanel, whom we're riding with now, and his teammate Andrew Gilbert-Scott in the other Gulf car, who's right behind him. Three McLarens running together. That's Ravaglia on the right, Steve Soper on the left, waiting to take over from Leto. One of the Lotuses is coming to a halt, and Peter Cox has gone off. Peter Cox is in the gravel. I don't know what happened there, but Peter Cox's car has come to a halt. There's a tractor going to drag it out. What a shame. It looks as though that car may be out. We're seeing a replay now. He's lapping the Riccitelli Porsche. Oh, and there's contact there. The Porsche just simply drove into the side of Peter Cox, spun him round. The Porsche goes round through the gravel, and this is Peter Cox's eye view. He comes up to lap the Porsche gives him lots of room, and then turns in, bang, at the back, and the McLaren spins off into the gravel, and I think the Dutchman, Peter Cox, must be absolutely furious about that. A completely unnecessary accident. Now, the leader's in the pit lane. Schneider, balked by the Chamberlain Viper a little bit, in the pit lane. Schneider comes in, the leader comes in, and Alex Burtz is standing, that tall figure, waiting to get in. Out gets Schneider, and now somehow sliding into that cockpit goes Alex Wurz. Alex Wurz is in there, and what are we seeing now? We're seeing another Lotus on fire. That's the Sandy Grau Kurt Tim Lotus. It's a slow motion replay. We see the driver rolling out of the cockpit and onto the grass as the marshals get there with their fire extinguishers. Nobody hurt, happily, but another Lotus is out of the race. Meanwhile, Alex Burtz has settled comfortably into the cockpit of that leading Mercedes, and he's maintaining that lead of Bernd Schneider. But we've got a Gulf McLaren in the pit lane now. It's damaged. That's the Andrew Gilbert-Scott car. What has happened to Andrew?
The car was going well. We were getting right up there. The car was handling pretty well. And then just going out after the pit stop, I hit the Armco coming out. It felt like there was some oil or some water down there because the other Lotus had caught fire. But whatever happens, obviously I feel responsible for doing it, so it's just incredibly annoying.
So we ride now with Alex Wurz, who is lapping Pierre-Henri Raffanel in the other Gulf McLaren, sister to the Andrew Gilbert-Scott car, but in fact he's not lapping it yet as they go up the hill and into the right-hander. Raffanel decides he's going to keep the leading Mercedes behind him for a bit. And Alex Wurz, you can see his hand briefly in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, working away at the wheel as he lines up to find a way to go past the McLaren, on the brakes for the tight right-hander at the end of the top straight, and now there's a left-hander that follows it. Wirtz looking at the right, and now at the left, and now he goes by. And meanwhile, Dave is down in the pits with the unfortunate Peter Cox.
He sees me, puts the indicator on the left, so I think he lets me go by. And suddenly he turns in really hard and he hits me on the left rear wheel. And I don't know, I cannot judge, but people say he turned in so hard that it was almost like it was on purpose that he turned in so hard. So I don't know. I just tried to do my best, and now I have this problem again, so it doesn't work too well for us at the moment.
Well, the other Schnitzer McLaren's in the pits. JJ Leto out of the car, and into the car is Steve Soper. Leto running around in the pit lane. Now he's gone back to the cockpit to help Steve Soper get himself into that awkward central seat in the three-seater cockpit of the McLaren. There's the Paynos. That's the Wallace Weaver car. They're 17th. Their teammates McCarthy and Brabham are now 13th. And that's Yannick Dalmas waiting to take over from Alan McNish, who's got his Works Porsche into 6th place. Meanwhile, Steve Soper running 3rd in that leading McLaren behind the two Mercedes. Let's hear from the man who's got it up in 3rd place, JJ Leto.
Mercedes is going so fast that we have to go flat out all the time, and really our only advantage at the moment is that we have such a good tire which is lasting a lot. So Steve is doing the 3rd stint already with the same tire.
Oh, there's one of the GT2 Porsches getting it very wrong on that long downhill right-hander. That's the Spanish Kramer car getting back on the tarmac. Here's a GT2 Porsche creeping to the pits with its winker going, but he's well on the racing line and has to swerve as the leader comes by. Meanwhile, coming into the pits is Alan McNish to hand over to Yannick Dalmas in that 6th place Works Porsche. McNish doing a very good job in his first drive for the Works Porsche team. That's him with the tartan on the top of his white helmet. Still Mercedes 1 and 2, McLaren 3, Mercedes 4, and in the gravel is the Chamberlain Viper. Almo Capelli has got that car well and truly beached as the yellow flags wave. And we've got the leader in the pits. The leader in the pits, and he shouldn't be in the pits. This is an unscheduled pit stop for the leading Schneider Alex Wirtz Mercedes, and that's good news for this man. The number 8 McLaren, Steve Soper at the wheel, goes up into 2nd place. The Klaus Ludwig Bernd Maylander Mercedes now leads. The Steve Soper JJ Leto McLaren up to 2nd, and in 3rd place now the Marcel Thiemann Alessandro Nannini Mercedes. That car still stationary in the pits. This is a delay for Bernd Schneider. What will the Mercedes-Benz tactics be now?
So maybe I jumped on another car because now Klaus Ludwig is leading, and I have to do some points, and if that car is still lead in the end, maybe I jump in that one.
Yes, the rules in the GT Championship allow a driver, if his car stops, to get into another car and still score points with that car's final position as long as he drives it for at least an hour. Well, it's still Mercedes leading. Klaus Ludwig, the red mirrored car, the Klaus Ludwig Bernd Maylander car is in the lead. The McLaren of Steve Soper and JJ Leto in 2nd place, keeping about the same gap back to it, not catching but not losing the now leading Mercedes. And we wait to see whether Mercedes will bring that car in and put their Drivers' Championship challenger, Bernd Schneider, in the car. Of course, JJ Leto and Steve Soper hope they won't, because it's JJ Leto and Steve Soper who currently lead the championship. There's another McLaren off, another Gulf McLaren off. That's Thomas Bichir, who seems to have spun. He gets the car back onto the track, takes a lot of gravel and dust with him, and that Viper is the Beretta Gash car in 2nd place in GT2. The Ortelli Porsche still leads GT2, with the Marcos gallantly plodding on in 3rd place, and Dieter Questa and Justin Bell in 4th spot. And that is the GT2 leading Porsche, and we've had driver changes here because both Bruno Eichmann and Claudia Hurtgen have moved out of their own car into this to score driver points. Claudia Hurtgen now at the wheel, and we've got the leading Mercedes coming into the pits now, and out gets Klaus Ludwig, and indeed in gets if he can clamber aboard. Now he manages to do it. They've had to change the seat because they're different sizes. That is Bernd Schneider. Bernd Schneider gets into the leading car. That's the Steve Soper McLaren, which has come in early. I gather a rear wheel was loose, and that brought Steve in earlier than he should have come in, and that's dropped him to third behind the Nannini Thiemann Mercedes. The Viper of Philippe Gache comes in. This is the second placed car in GT2, remember. It's tremendously hot inside these cockpits. Water for Philippe Gache. He hasn't got a straw. He's just pouring the water down all over his face because it's tremendously hot in these closed, confined spaces, particularly in the front engine cars like the Paynos and the Viper. Now we've got the Mercedes with the red mirrors in the lead. This is the Klaus Ludwig car now being driven by Bernd Schneider, and Bernd Schneider's superb sports car driver that he is comfortably in the lead. The Mercedes with yellow mirrors, the car that he started in, is still running, and it's in 6th place, but that's the Pedro Chavez Racing Porsche being wheeled away. Here in the Paynos pit, Dave Price and Perry McCarthy look pretty happy. Both the Paynos cars are running in 12th and 13th places. Mercedes in the lead. That is Bernd Schneider in the Ludwig Maylander car. The Nannini Thiemann Mercedes is in 2nd place. After their early stops, Soper and Leto third in the McLaren. We're watching now the GT2 leader, that's Claudia Hurtgen, waving by the Paynos. You could see her giving it a hand signal to let that big grumbling Paynos go by. We've got in 4th place the McLaren of Olofsson and Raffanel, 5th place the Boots and Wallach Porsche, and the 3rd Mercedes, the one that was delayed, of Schneider and Wurz, is in 6th place. But into the pits now comes once more the Philippe Gache Viper. He's got the door open, I think because he's so hot inside, but this is an unscheduled stop and they can't restart it. It's a very hot car and it doesn't want to start. It's got 10 cylinders and 8 litres in there, and none of them want to chime in, and that means that his chance of catching this car, the GT2 leader of Claudia Hurtgen and Bruno Eichmann, is now dwindling away. There's Gache, he's back on the circuit now, they got it started, and just ahead of him, still going well, David Brabham in that Paynos, running just outside the top 10. And in among all that traffic is the leading Mercedes. He's got a big lead now, has Bernd Schneider, and he's going to make absolutely sure that he doesn't have a traffic accident this late in the race. We've seen it happen before. We've seen it happen to Peter Cox, among others, in this race. And so, waiting his time to go past that Viper, now he does so. That's Bernd Schneider on his way. Alex Wurz, probably the fastest man on the circuit at the moment, in 6th place in the car that he has shared earlier in the race with that man, Bernd Schneider. And some more smoke, some more fire. That's the Marcos. That's a shame, because Cor Euser and Harold Becker had been doing a wonderful job of having that somewhat vintage motor car running in 3rd place in GT2, and it looks as though their race in these closing stages has come to an end. Now, Steve Soper in 3rd place overall. That's the Wallach Boots and Porsche in 6th place that Steve is lapping in the McLaren. 2 Mercedes ahead of him, and there's the Mercedes of Alexander Wurz, which is storming up through the field. He's about to lap Emmanuel Collard's GT1 Porsche, lining up to do so, weaving under braking, but the car that Wurz is really interested in is the blue and orange McLaren ahead of him, because that is the Olofsson Raffanel car in 4th place. Wurz, after that earlier delay, is running 5th, but there's a Mercedes going slow. That was a shot, very briefly, of that's the 2nd place Mercedes, and it is coming to a halt. And that's going to allow Steve Soper to take the white McLaren, the Schnitzer BMW McLaren, up into 2nd place. I can see him from here. He's managed to get the car underway again, but it's going very, very slowly. Still, of course, the Schneider Ludwig Maylander car leads, and a further lap back, this battle between Wurz's Mercedes and Olofsson's McLaren goes on. Olofsson just ahead. They've got a slower GT2 Porsche ahead of them, and now Wurz charges up the inside. Is the GT2 Porsche in the way? No, the Mercedes goes between the two of them, and Olofsson has to give best. Wurz is 4th, and Olofsson down to 5th. Worried faces in the Mercedes pit. But now we've got Steve Soper in the pit lane. We're not due to have a pit stop from him. He's in second place. Steve Soper in the dying moments of this race. Steve Soper is in the pits and they're refueling the car. It's a last-minute splash and dash pit stop, and while they're there, Marcel Thiemann has taken the faltering Mercedes-Benz, which seems now to be firing on all cylinders, back into second place. Steve Soper rejoins after that brief pit stop, but it was enough to drop him back now into third place. The Alessandro Nannini Marcel Thiemann Mercedes is back up to second, and while all this drama is going on, still at the front of the field, Bernd Schneider in the Klaus Ludwig Bert Mailander car. Norbert Haug and the Mercedes team don't want to celebrate yet, but this is the final lap, and Bernd Schneider has 10 lovely championship points waiting for him and for the Mercedes team as he comes over the brow into the final double right-hander. The battle-stained Mercedes CLK Coupe can now see the checkered flag. Bernd Schneider accelerates onto the start-finish straight. The checkered flag waves. Mercedes-Benz celebrates as they win in Austria. 1 and 2 for Mercedes, despite the last-minute dramas for the Nannini Thiemann car. Soper and Leto are on the podium again, but Schneider used 2 cars to win this race. Legal, but controversial.
He was in trouble with his car, and he did an outstanding job today, and I think he deserves the 10 points. He was definitely the #1 driver in the field, and he did a fantastic job.
So plenty for Mercedes to celebrate then. First, second and fourth place, here's the confirmation. And Leto and Soper again on the podium for BMW. McNish and Delmas, they came home an excellent 7th in their Porsche. The Dave Price Paynos boys persevered in the heat, and they finished 11th and 12th.
We showed some good pace at the end. We were only running 2 seconds slower than Mercedes. Yeah, I'm not happy about running 2 seconds slower than Mercedes, but you know, we're making progress. So you know, we keep trying. We're in for Britain.
And this is how the GT1 Drivers' Championship is affected. The McLaren duo Leto and Soper now just 10 points ahead of Mercedes' Bernd Schneider. Justin Bowe seems happy enough with 3rd place in the GT2 class. But with Bruno Eichmann and Claudia Hürtgen switching cars, he drops to 3rd in the championship table. So that's how...
And it really is hot and humid here at Suzuka. The temperature well into the 90s as the field come round to the rolling start. A 2x2 grid, but as they come into this tight final chicane, they have to break up into single file. It's that narrow. Pole position man Klaus Ludwig in the silver Mercedes with the white Porsche alongside that Yannick Dalmas. Then Schneider and Nannini in the other 2 Mercedes. Leto in the white McLaren. Brabham in that wicked-looking front-engine Paynos. They come now down. The red light over the start-finish line goes to green. Now the race is on, and Ludwig gets the lead, but he's being challenged on the outside by teammate Schneider, who's alongside the white Porsche, as we ride now with Jeff Lees in the McLaren. Ahead of him, the Paynos on the brakes for that tight first curve, almost a hairpin, and then on the power again through the sweeping S curve. And it's Ludwig pulling away from Dalmas. Schneider and Nannini are 3rd and 4th. Then it's JJ Leto, the championship leader in the white McLaren, ahead of David Brabham going well in the Paynos. Then the 2 Gulf McLarens, the blue and orange cars. Jeff Lees just ahead of Pierre-Henri Raffanel. In 9th place, the pink car. That is another McLaren, the privately entered Japanese entry. Eric Bernard is 10th. in the Dams Panos as they go sweeping down towards the tight hairpin under the bridge, which takes them underneath this figure-of-8 circuit, underneath the back straight, now down to the hairpin. Ludwig goes a little bit wide, misses the apex. Much tighter is the second-place Porsche. Bernd Schneider in third place, pushing up behind the Porsche, trying the outside as they go up the sweeping right-hander away from the hairpin. Mercedes in fourth place, that's Nannini. And the Lotus, the Thai Lotus, has been hit at the hairpin. Jérôme Poliquin, the French driver, he is halted across the curves. I can't see from here who hit him, but there's a car on fire. There's a car going round well alight as we ride with Justin Bell in the Viper, and that car ahead of him on his right is well on fire. It's one of the Saab Toyotas. It's Tatsuya Tanigawa trying to get back to the pits, but that car is well aflame, and I think he ought to stop. He's not stopping. He's driving on. The car is fully on fire at the back. He's driving on to try and get back to the pits, but he's being very, very unwise indeed. He's got to stop, surely. Perhaps he's looking for a fire marshal. The rest of the field going by. He's on the grass now. He's going to set fire to the grass. The car is fully on fire. The marshals are looking for their fire extinguishers. Now at last they've got them, and he's still inside the car. The car now, black smoke as they get the fire extinguisher onto that car. Now the fire is getting, I think, under control. Yes, the fire marshal's working on it. Amazingly, one of the fire marshals has a T-shirt on, which is somewhat unwise. The Taiwanese Lotus has made it back to the pit. And meanwhile, we've got Mercedes 1 and 2. Bernd Schneider has got past the Yannick Dalmas Porsche and is immediately back onto the tail of his teammate Klaus Ludwig, who leads. Ludwig 1, Schneider 2. There is the Porsche in third place, Yannick Dalmas, and he's under pressure from the third Mercedes in fourth place. That's Alessandro Nannini. And Nannini challenging now. Nannini looking at the outside as they come away from the chicane onto the start-finish straight. He's in front. He knows he's ahead. It's Mercedes 1, 2, 3 already here in Japan. Porsche 4 with Yannick Dalmas down in fourth place. Then it's the McLaren of championship leader JJ Leto fifth. The David Brabham Paynol still going excellently well in sixth place. And news of that Saab Toyota, the fire there, you see it, is out, and we understand that Tanigawa did happily get out of that car. He is unhurt. The Japanese McLaren having an early pit stop. They're doing something to the front of the car, changing the front tyres by the look of things. It may well be that it's run over some of the debris which is already on this circuit. The yellow Marcos of Koroiza already lapped by the battling leaders. Still, Klaus Ludwig leads. And this is Jeff Lees. We're on board with him, still following the Brabham Paynors, going down into that tight first corner. He's got a chance here, but we've got a back marks there. He's on the inside of Brabham now. He's through. He's going between the Porsches. Oh, he hit both of them. He squeezed between the two Porsches. Look at his mirror. Look at the right mirror on the right of your picture. It's come off and it's flapping around, banging against the front side window. But Jeff Lees has got by. Here once more, the Mercedes. Red mirrors leads, that's Ludwig. Yellow mirrors in second place, that's Schneider. And blue mirrors in third place, Alessandro Nannini. Mercedes 1, 2, 3. But Jeff Lees has now got a broken front right-hand window. Look at the mirror, flapping around at speeds of up to 200 miles an hour. Now in GT2, Philippe Gash is leading in that Viper, white with the thick blue stripes, the unmistakable V10 Viper, and lapping him, the fourth place battle. Yannick Dalmas goes by in the Porsche, and there is the McLaren, the white McLaren with red mirrors. That is JJ Leto, the championship leader, in fifth place, and he is now right up with Yannick Dalmas. So battles going on behind this leading trio of Mercedes-Benzes, and the Parabolica McLaren's going very slowly. That's the British entered yellow McLaren creeping out of the pits. It's just made a stop. Gary Ailes at the wheel. He's got his hazard flashes going to warn the others that he's not going at the proper speed. There, the Parabolica team talking to the Schnitzer BMW guys for some advice. No doubt, and we've got a new leader. Yellow mirrors ahead of red mirrors. Bernd Schneider, the king of the Mercedes GT team. Their current bet for the World Championship has now gone slingshotting by Klaus Ludwig, and we've got fire in the pits. That's the French entered Paynors, and the fire in in fact, seems to be behind the car. I think the refueling rig has caught fire. Eric Bernard in the crash helmet out of the car. That's the driver. He's safe and well. And they've now got the fire extinguishers there as we see the Dalmas Porsche spin off. So disaster has been averted in the pits. The routine stops beginning now. That's Jeff Lees bringing in the Gulf McLaren. It's the one with the broken window. I wonder if they can do anything about that. John Nielsen ready to get in. Nielsen gets in. Jeff Lees is out. It's ferociously hot inside these cars' cockpits today. They've got some dry ice ready, which they're going to put into a container in the car, and that will feed the cool suit that the driver wears to try and keep him cool. There's JJ Leto cooling down after his hot stint. He's handed over to his fellow championship leader, the British driver Steve Soper. There's Michael Caine of the Gulf team, impatient because Nielsen can't start his car. They can't get the Gulf. Oh, now it started. Window taped up, and John Nielsen gets back into the race after a long stop. Alex Wurz now taken over from Schneider in the leading Mercedes. Bernd Maylander in the Ludwig Mercedes in second place. And Marcel Tiemann's taken over from Alessandro Nannini, their third. Steve Soper, fourth, ahead of the Rafael Gunnar Olofsson Gulf McLaren. The Yannick Dalmas Alan McNish Porsche is in seventh place after that spin. They did get restarted. And Perry McCarthy's taken over the Paynos from David Brabham. He is in eighth place. Meanwhile, Ailes has got the McLaren back to the pits. There's co-driver Stefan Johansson. So what's the trouble?
We've had some terrible problems because in the free practice we had a drive shaft go, and then we had an exhaust failure, and then I had brake failure in qualifying, and now we've got an electrical problem. So yeah, it's very unusual because normally the car is very good, very reliable. You can run it all day long. It's not a problem. So it must have just caught up with us, I guess.
They've come a long way to have all that trouble. Now that's the Hans Stuck Porsche, the Hans Stuck DT1 Porsche, now up to ninth place, ahead of Perry McCarthy in the Paynos. And we watch the other Saab Toyota, getting it absolutely wrong, backwards off on that long left-hander, does a complete 360 degrees, gets back onto the circuit once more. But look at the dust and the gravel that pursues that car. Kageyama and Tanaka. And as Alessandro Nannini watches in the pits, his Mercedes, now co-driven by Marcel Tiemann, is right up on the tail of leader Alexander Wurz and pushing hard, and Wurz has got a problem. Sparks coming from the back of Wurz's car. Wurz is off. And I don't know what's gone wrong in the back of the car, but sheets of sparks coming out of the back. Alexander Wurz drives on. The rear suspension looks as though it's collapsed. And he's still driving on. He's back on the circuit. Tiemann has gone off into the lead, and Alexander Wurz is nursing that car, which clearly has had some sort of breakage at the back. There's smoke and sparks coming from the rear bodywork, but he's pressing on at still a fair old rate to get that car back to the pits. And the leader now, Marcel Tiemann and Alessandro Nannini in their Mercedes-Benz. Twitching as he goes through that left-hander. The Mercedes-Benz mechanics are ready and waiting. Now the car comes in. Marcel Tiemann leads. Alexander Wurz brings that car into the pits now. Up it goes on its hydraulic inbuilt jacks, and the mechanics swarm over the back of the car. It's going to be very hot in there. Lots of sparks and smoke are coming up from the rear bodywork. And of course, this is a blow for Bernd Schneider. Remember, he is the challenger for Mercedes-Benz for the championship title. So Marcel Tiemann leads. The Ludwig Maylander car is in second place. And now up into third comes Steve Soper and JJ Leto. Takes the Mercedes out of the pits. Its rear suspension repaired. It's lost 3 laps. It's now down in 10th place. Still Mercedes 1-2, McLaren 3-4. As the Mercedes pit plot their strategy. Meanwhile, in GT2, this car, driven by the Englishman Robert Nairn, is in second place in that category. Justin Bell and Tommy Archer are fourth. That's Claudia Hurtgen on the right, talking to her co-driver Nee Amorim. Bruno Eichmann, the other driver of that car, is currently holding it in third place in GT2. Bernd Maylander, the Mercedes with the red mirrors, in second place. He's got Andrew Gilbert-Scott in the ninth place Gulf McLaren behind him as they go through the tight hairpin and on through the fast right-hander that follows it. And interesting that McLaren is holding on to the Mercedes just as the leading Mercedes, the blue mirrored car, is being dogged now by the Gulf McLaren of Pierre-Henri Raffanel, which is in 4th place and just 1 lap behind it. Interesting to watch these two cars and contrast the purpose-built racing GT, the silver Mercedes-Benz, and the McLaren, which was originally designed by Gordon Murray as the ultimate road car, and is a road car that's been adapted for racing, unlike the Mercedes. Pit stop now for the number 7 Porsche. That's the Portuguese Pedro Lamy waiting to get in, but they're working on that car. In comes the Japanese McLaren, currently lying in 7th place. That looks like a routine pit stop for them. Bruno Eichmann now, that's the GT2 championship leader. They're in 3rd place. He and Lee Amorin and Claudia Hurtgen in their silver Rook Racing Porsche. The leader in GT2 still Gash and Beretta in their Viper, and Robert Nairn still in 2nd place. Tommy Archer and Justin Bell are 4th in GT2. While it's the GT1 cars that tend to get all the glory, and of course it's the GT1s that are battling for the lead, GT2 championship honours are just as jealously fought over. We get the 911 Porsches, which look pretty much like the sort of Porsche you can drive on the road. The rumbling American Vipers, the big V10 Vipers. There's one of them in the gravel. That's the Hugh Chamberlain entry, driven today by 3 Japanese drivers. Looks as though its race is run. Now there you see the semi-works Vipers, the white ones with the thick blue stripes, and being passed by the Roberto Ravaglia McLaren and the 4th placed Gulf McLaren. Pierre-Henri Raffanel and Jean-Marc Gounon going well in that car. And that's the Japanese McLaren. Now that's got a big problem. Looks as though there's something smoking at the back. I think that's rubber smoke. It looks as though the bodywork is rubbing against the rear wheel. He must surely be bound for the pits. Sekiar, Tsuchiya and Nakaya driving that car, one of the latest McLarens entered by a Japanese team. They of course know this circuit extremely well. He's got into the pits now. The team are waiting, and whether that's a collision with another car or just a breakage at the back, they're certainly going to have to do some work. And the rear tyre has burnt itself away, rubbing away at that bodywork at the back. Now here's a real bar. That's the Paynos. That is the Andy Wallace-James Weaver car, and that is well and truly on fire. The driver getting out, that's the American Butch Leitzinger getting out of the car, but it's well and truly on fire. They've quickly got the fire out, but I would think that's the end of that drive for the Paynos. They were in 12th place, and on this very long and hot race, 3 drivers in this car, Leitzinger joining Wallace and James Weaver for this occasion, and it was burning pretty badly at the back, and those flames looked dangerously near the cockpit. Not surprising that Butch Leitzinger got out pretty quickly.
And the fuel tank for some reason is overpressuring, so when we fill it up there's a lot of blowback, and we think it's blown back, and some of it's laid on top of the fuel cell, and as it went around the corner it just sloshed out over the exhaust. So it's a flash fire. I don't think it's enough to put us out of the race.
That's Perry McCarthy talking to Paynos boss Don Paynos. The Perry McCarthy David Brabham Paynos still going in 11th place. Into the pits now comes Alexander Wurz. This is the Schneider car, back up to 7th place, and out gets Wurz, and getting in is not Bert Schneider, it's Aguri Suzuki, the ex-Formula 1 driver from Japan, very quick man round here, and that is very significant. Oh, and that's the other Paynos. 11th placed man, David Brabham, well and truly stuck in the gravel. I don't know how he's going to get that car out of there. It doesn't look particularly damaged, but it's not moving. There is the leading GT2 Viper, the Gash Beretta car, and we've got a new 3rd man because Steve Soup has been in the pits for a routine stop. So has the Raffanel McLaren. The Raffanel McLaren came out ahead of Soper with Anders Olofsson now at the wheel. There it is, going past the Gulf car just ahead of the Schnitzer car. A real battle for 3rd place with Raffanel, or Olofsson I should say, just ahead of Soper. And Brabham's got going again. There's the Paynos trailing gravel, but it's going once more. But this 3rd place battle is well and truly joined with Olofsson just a calf's length ahead of Steve Soper. Remember, Soper with Leto, they're leading the championship at the moment. And Soper needs to get this 3rd place back. He lost it in the pits, and now Olofsson is really charging in the number 3 McLaren. with Soper as close as he could possibly be as they go through the hairpin and accelerating off, and one of the Mercedes is off. Which one is it? That's Ludwig. Ludwig, red mirrors, that's the second place Mercedes, off the track. I don't know if that's another suspension breakage like its teammate. It looks okay. Perhaps it was simply a driver error, but Klaus Ludwig still in second place. He went off the road, got back on again without losing his second place. A long pit stop for the GT2 championship leaders. That's the Claudia Hurtgen Porsche. Good news for Justin Bell, who needs the points in GT2. And this battle still going on for third place. Olofsson holding off Steve Soper. Soper pushing hard, but still Soper down in fourth place. Olofsson in the Golf car in third. And Nannini's brought in the leading Mercedes-Benz, and look who's getting into it. Bernd Schneider is taking over that Nannini car. It means Bernd Schneider is changing cars. He's taking over the lead car purely because of the championship rules allowing him to do so. This is the Cox Ravaglia McLaren. It's got front-end damage, running just inside the top 10. The Silverstone winners have had a difficult race here today, but the significant point is that Bernd Schneider has taken over the leading car, as he's entitled to do by the rules, after his own car had had a delay earlier on with that suspension breakage. There's Charlie Lamb, who runs the Schnitzer BMW team, and he knows exactly what's going on. Not good news for Steve Soper and JJ Leto, who are still leading the Drivers' Championship. Still leading the GT2 class here in Japan. That's the Viper of Beretta and Gash. It's led this category ever since the beginning, about to be lapped by the 10th placed GT1 Porsche of Mauro Baldi, Alain Ferté and Emmanuel Collard, the red and white Porsche. But now as the headlights start to come on because the sun is getting lower in the sky, we've got Mercedes 1 and 2, and the blazing headlights mean that is Bernd Schneider as we ride with him going down the inside of the back markers, tyres squealing as he leaves the braking late for the hairpin, accelerates away with the engine rising to a whine behind him, looking at the digital dashboard in front of him, and lights on, says the official sign, but a lot of them have their headlights on already, including JJ Leto. Now, JJ Leto is in fourth place. Remember that Steve Soper was on the tail of that third-placed Gulf McLaren, but in the most recent pit stop, JJ Leto's stop was 20 seconds longer than the Gulf car. Leto now in that car. He's absolutely charging, elbowing his way through the traffic. He's on a late, desperate charge. What, of course, he needs to do is to score as many points as possible to keep this Drivers' Championship lead that he shares with Steve Soper. Still Jean-Marc Gounon in third place, some way ahead now, but JJ Leto wants to get onto that podium, and he is closing hard. Former Formula One driver, of course, is Leto, and even though the McLaren hasn't got the speed of the Mercedes, now that the Mercedes has become fully developed in GT racing, Leto is a very fast man when he's really pushing on as he is now. But pushing on too, Bernd Schneider in the leading Mercedes that he's taken over. He laps that rumbling Paynos, which is still keeping going, and in this closing stage of the race it looks as though Brabham and Perry McCarthy may well make it to the end. And now look, Soper has indeed got onto Gounod's tail. Soper's charge has taken him right up onto Jean-Marc Gounod's tail. McLaren third, McLaren fourth, but we're coming to the dying moments of this race, and Leto's going to have to make his challenge now if he's going to make it at all. Schneider, meanwhile, comfortably on his way. Nannini and Thiemann then just waiting for the victory. They've got no more work to do because Schneider's taken over their car and is racing it towards the checkered flag. And JJ Leto spun at the hairpin. He's got going again, and he's going to have to settle for fourth. There is Bernd Schneider sitting right behind him. Leto is going to have to settle for fourth place. The checkered flag is waiting as Bernd Schneider gets alongside fourth man JJ Leto. They go over the finish line. Mercedes win. Bernd Schneider helps Alessandro Nannini and Marcel Thiemann to the checkered flag. Schneider therefore scores maximum Drivers' Championship points again. It's a 1-2 for Mercedes. McLarens are third and fourth, and the Beretta Gash Viper, lights ablaze, makes it a start-to-finish win in GT2.
So another Mercedes 1-2 here in Suzuka, with Bernd Schneider once again in the winning car. For the first time this season, Steve Soper and JJ Leto finished behind a Golf car and off the podium. good to see Andrew Gilbert-Scott, though, in 6th. After 7 races, this is the top of the Drivers' Championship, and it looks tight now. Schneider just 3 points behind Leto and Soper. The Team Championship is even closer, with BMW and Mercedes dead level. In the GT2 category, Philippe Gache and Olivier Beretta won at last. Justin Bell again in the top 3, and that keeps him in touch with Eichmann and Hürtgen in the drivers' table.